Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Now, we know you've recently undergone treatment for prostate cancer, and you've come along just to share some of your experiences.
Yes.
Appreciate you doing that. Firstly, could you tell me, how did you come to be tested for prostate cancer?
I was just feeling a little bit unwell. I wasn't one to get a regular checkup at the doctor, but I decided to. I remember the day very clearly. I went in and I said I was just feeling a little down, lacking energy, was probably working too hard, but thought it was a good idea to get my blood pressure checked, blood sugar, that sort of thing. I knew of a PSA test, and I actually asked for it. It wasn't suggested to me. And then the result came back obviously quite high.
You said you had to ask for it. Had your GP discussed having your PSA tested?
No, it was really something that, for him anyway, that was suggested to somebody in their mid-50s or somebody a lot older than what I was. I am 46. I sort of had some awareness of it because a colleague of mine had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I sort of had an awareness of what PSA was. Okay. I suggested that maybe we do a full blood test, and that's really where it started.
So then you had your PSA blood test.
I did.
And it came back and it was abnormal?
It was. It was very high. It was 28. I didn't understand what 28 was. When I was told it should be sort of around about the 2 to 3 mark, I immediately thought, well, what does that mean? It was explained to me that in most cases it's an infection or a benign enlargement of the prostate that a lot of men get, but for somebody of my age it was quite unusual. From that point I went on to some antibiotics to treat the infection, and then at a later point got tested again.
So you tested again, came back and it was still
It had dropped marginally. It had dropped to 21,
yeah.
And then we did actually a third test and it had dropped to 18, so there was a lot of fluctuation there. I was told that that's probably a good thing because, if it was steadily rising, it would show that there was something perhaps growing. Yeah. It was at that time that, the anxiety started to build, and of course what you do is you start talking to people, you go online and you start to research this thing. So I remember clearly it was really at that stage where I tried to educate myself, empower myself with as much knowledge about this as I possibly could.
So this was before you even went and had
Yes.
the next stage, which was, I guess, was a biopsy?
Yes, it was. And I, being quite proactive, I guess, I had 2 or 3 meetings back with the doctor to talk about what I had discovered. He said it was quite unusual for somebody to come back and fire so many questions, but that's just me. And I was aware, obviously, that the next step was a biopsy, and I was referred to a urologist at that point.
How did you actually feel when you were given the biopsy results?
Well, look, leading up to the biopsy, I had all of the other tests, the digital test. I was asked a whole lot of questions. I had no symptoms at all. All I had was a high PSA. I had a second digital exam with the urologist, and once again the assumption was that it was an infection or an enlargement. But we decided that the best course of action, certainly from the urologist's point of view, was to have a biopsy. Leading up to that, there was a high degree of anxiety because you mentally are aware, certainly by looking online, which is full of bad stories and really concerning stuff. You mentally put yourself in the position that, I'm going to get a bad result here. It's at that point where the family kicks in and they surround you and support you. The result came back negative. No cancer was found, and I thought I was in the clear. I was told the next phase to this was to wait 4 months or something like that, and we would do another PSA test.
So you had a PSA test, it was still elevated?
Correct, it was still very high, and the discussion at that point with the urologist was to do something called a saturation biopsy, and that was explained to me that would be similar to the biopsy I had first, but they took a lot more samples, and they took it from all around the actual gland. And I was fine with that. I was really just in a mental state of mind where I wanted to know what was happening here.
Yeah.
In that period of time between the first and second biopsy, I was on quite a strong antibiotic, neuroxin,
Neuroxin,
which I was getting a lot of nausea with, and I just wanted to get off them. But you sort of you feel that maybe this is going to fix it, so you stick with it.
Yeah.
But the result was that I would have another biopsy, which I did.
The next biopsy, unfortunately, came back with some prostate cancer.
Yes, it did. Yes, on one of the samples that was done, cancer showed up, and it was at that point that I was told, well, you would need to have a radical prostatectomy as soon as possible. I didn't feel I was getting a full explanation of what was happening to me. I was certainly asking a lot of questions. It was discussed with me that there are three aspects of this. Now that you're going to have surgery, the plan is get rid of the cancer, maintain continence, and save erectile function. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I'm falling off the chair because I've just been told I have cancer, let alone there's a possibility you're going to be incontinent for the rest of your life and your whole sexual function is out the window. I mean, three heavy hitting blows.
Absolutely.
It's at that point where your partner starts to squeeze your hand and you can feel that and you realise, well, you're not alone and this is affecting other people.
Can you just describe the feelings that went through your mind when you were told?
Yeah, lots of feelings, anxiety. You actually become strong. I don't know if it's a human element to this or not, but I think human beings have a wonderful defence mechanism that's inbuilt, and you feel yourself getting stronger, and I certainly do, and you think, well, okay, at least now we know what's going on. Yeah. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. A feeling of being scared, a feeling of what do you tell your children? Yeah. How do you frame this in the right way with your partner? A bombardment of emotions across the board, and you deal with it. You have to deal with it. It was at that point where I was told that we need to get you in surgery as soon as possible. I wanted to know about the operation, and it was described that it is a difficult place to operate on because of where the prostate lies, and we will attempt to save the nerve endings, which is pretty important for a guy, and but there's no guarantee. So after that event, there just happened to be something on the television. I think it was 60 Minutes or one of those programs, and it was on the robotic procedure. And I was all ears, obviously, and I looked into that in detail. And I realised that was a better procedure. It was at that point where I got back in touch with my urologist at the time and was told, pretty much that, look, it's not an appropriate procedure for you, that you're looking at a radical prostatectomy, you will have to have your lymph nodes removed, and once again, no guarantees, but at your age, with a PSA level of what you have, with a Gleason score of what you have, it's serious, and we need to do a radical procedure. For me, I just didn't accept that, really because I had educated and empowered myself with a lot of information online, and I just thought, well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that if through laparoscopic surgery and this amazing technology, if everything is expanded by tenfold visually, you have the precision of 5 robotic arms, then to me, that's going to have a better outcome if you're dealing with these microscopic sized nerves. And the result of 1,000 odd operations in the Epworth, where I was looking, was very, very positive. So I immersed myself in all of that, and I decided to go back to my doctor, and I asked for, how do I get a second opinion here? Okay. But I wasn't going to be talked out of that because I had a strong feeling that was the right outcome for me.